To answer that question, I need to give you 3 clues as to where I am. Number 1, it's where dramatic mountains plunge straight into the sea. Number 2, it's got one of the world's top 10 long-distance hiking trails. I'm talking, have a look down there, I'm talking some pretty hardcore, scary hiking. Number 3, it's where there was an ancient civilization stretching back over 3,500 years. So if you haven't guessed it yet, I'm swimming in the water below the Lycian Trail in southern Turkey. In my opinion, the most dramatic and wild part of the Mediterranean coast. But do you agree? So to help you answer that question, I've strung together a series of shots, largely using my drone, but also some from Paraglider. So over the next few minutes, enjoy some beautiful, relaxing, soothing and calming images from this beautiful part of the world. So what was that? You can see that I'm currently at home editing all this stuff together. That was Olympos, the fire-breathing mountain. You probably saw, it looks like there's a misspelling, Olympos, but that's actually the Turkish spelling. What all those things were, that kind of cliff and beach and kind of river that sort of flows into the sea, that is Olympos, which is an old ancient Lycian city. And just around the corner from that is the fire-breathing mountain. I didn't show it at night because obviously you can't really easily send the drone up at night, but you can see flames coming out of the mountainside at night time. And it's due to a gas that comes up through the Earth's surface and then sets on fire naturally. And you can see it at night from out to sea, like miles away in the distance, this mountain that has kind of fire coming out of it. And it's where it's rumoured that the first Olympic flame was lit thousands of years ago. You know, the flame that they run around the world with and the Olympics was on? That flame was rumoured to be lit there. However, you know, there are other fire-breathing mountains, who knew, that's dotted around the world, especially in Greece, which also lay claim to the fact that that's the place where the first Olympic torch was lit. Ultimately, who really knows? Anyway, the second place we're going to have a look at now is this old ancient city of Tchaikovsky. It's really a town of about 5,000 people. It's very close to the Greek and Turkish border. It's also a little bit spooky. In fact, that last place that we had a look at, that was the fire-breathing mountain, was also a little bit spooky because the ancient Lycians, when they saw the fire coming out of the mountain, thought that that was the kind of access point to the underworld. So a lot of kind of quite spooky little places around here. Anyway, this ancient town of Tchaikovsky was abandoned about 100 years ago, and it was when they kind of drew the border between Greece and Turkey after the end of the Ottoman Empire and all that. And what happened, a little bit like in India and Pakistan where people had to kind of switch sides during partition, here what happened was that Islamic people that were based in Greece were essentially turfed out and had to move to Turkey, and Christian people who lived in Turkey were kind of turfed out and had to live and move over to Greece. So this was actually previously a Greek town that was in Turkey that was abandoned sort of like almost overnight or over a few days. And all these people left in a rush, so you still see some kind of bits and bobs that are kind of lying around in the town, you know, pretty much on the day that they left it. And today it's just this incredible place because it's quite eerie, but it's incredibly beautiful because they have like trees that are growing up through houses. You still see some of the blue paint that's on the houses, but it's really been kind of returned to nature. So this next couple of minutes is just a bit of drone footage to show you some of the incredible sights around this area. So that was Tchaikovsky, beautiful place. It's now a few days later, which is hence why I've miraculously changed shirt and I've just had a shower. Yeah, I really love that opening shot where you start with the drone and you're kind of pulling back really fast, and then you're kind of revealing all of those houses that were abandoned so many years ago. Another one of my favourite shots was definitely the tiny little chapel that you saw right at the top of the mountain. It's minuscule. It can probably only hold about 20 people or so. And, you know, there's a really difficult, windy little kind of, it's not really even a path, kind of like hillside scramble to get right up to the top. No idea why they built it up there. I mean, it looks pretty epic, but maybe it's something to do with like serving your penance or something by climbing all the way up to the top of the mountain to this tiny little chapel before you say your prayers. But once you get to that chapel and then you head and follow the mountain down all the way to the sea, you then get to where we're next going to go, which is the town of Uludinez, which I'm almost certainly pronouncing wrong, so apologies to any Turkish speakers. And that is the starting point of the minibus, to be fair, which then takes you up to the top of this huge mountain to one of Europe's best paragliding spot, so they say, and certainly one of the world's top paragliding spots. So the next couple of minutes will be an intro into the serene world of paragliding.
You ready?
I hope so.
Take off.
Okay.
Off now.
So that was me gormlessly floating around up in the air on a paraglider, and you probably saw actually when you take off, it's quite difficult to take off because you're strapped to someone else, and so you end up running along looking like some sort of, I don't know, like a sort of crab that needs the toilet. You kind of do this weird little run, and then eventually you kind of get up and you take off, and actually then you're kind of sitting back in this almost like in a kind of armchair kind of hammock position, and it's really comfortable. You know, you kind of you'd imagine that, you know, you're going through the clouds like that, and you'd think that, oh, it's going to be really windy. But in fact, you know, you can, because you're being carried by the winds, there's not any wind rushing past you like that. So you can pretty much have a conversation with your paraglider pilot without even raising your voice. It's quite kind of incredible like that. And you know, you just sort of sit back and watch the world go by from a bird's eye view, which is really cool, and a real kind of privilege to be able to do that. It becomes a little bit less serene, of course, when you start doing the tricks. You probably saw right at the end, the guy that was flying it started doing these kind of crazy tricks where you're kind of doing these loop-the-loops, and it's very much like being on a roller coaster. You know, you are dropping like tens of feet at a time as you kind of plummet down towards the sea. And if I'm honest, I felt quite sick afterwards, but the sort of thrill of doing that and just really the adrenaline rush that you get is really well worth it. Landing, of course, is also quite difficult. He says, don't sit down, stand up and jog along when we land. Of course, I just sat down straight away, but you know, my bad. I think I was just too in the zone of enjoying the scenery. But yeah, you probably saw, actually you probably didn't see, but I could see from the paraglider, quite far away, a couple of miles, was the rim of this valley called Butterfly Valley that we sort of hiked along to and stood right on this sheer cliff face. We wanted to hike down into the valley itself, but we spoke to a couple of locals and they said, well, there is a route down and you can follow this kind of roped path, because they have ropes that are kind of knocked in with bolts into the rock face to help you kind of climb down, because it's so steep. But then, you know, they'd said, don't do that. It used to be safe, but apparently some of those have come loose, and a few walkers a couple of years ago had actually sort of fallen to their death. So we were like, okay, we won't be doing that. So we hiked to the edge of this cliff face, and I sent the drone out from there for you to have a look. And one thing you'll notice immediately in this like 2-minute or 1-minute section of video is the sound, and it's because right at the top of this valley there's a tiny, to be fair, little mosque, but it has a huge whacking great sound system. So when the call to prayer comes, it just bellows out over the valley. And what's really incredible is that it's such a kind of hard surface of the rock of the valley that you get this incredible echoing that, I don't know how long it goes on for, but it sounds like it's going on for like kind of 10 or 11 echoes at a time. And the whole kind of visual and then the sound and everything just makes it feel like, you know, one of the most mesmerizing places I've ever kind of been, seen and heard. It's just really incredible. So this is Butterfly Valley. So there we have it, short, sharp and spectacular. I hope you could hear those echoes that were echoing around the valley. I hope that came across on the recording. There's in fact over 100 species of butterfly actually in that valley, and I didn't want to get too close with the drone because obviously that's going to disturb them. But yeah, if you go there in the summer, you have to get there by boat obviously, and you look up or just like sort of look into the verdant pasture in that green valley. You see clouds of butterflies everywhere. It's really beautiful. And we're now going to come on to our final few places in this last few minutes. And the first place is a very special place called St. Nicholas Island. So Who was St. Nicholas? Well, he was the patron saint of sailors. He's also better known as Father Christmas. And most people don't know that St. Nicholas spent most of his time living in modern-day Turkey, and this was his final resting place. So here we go, St. Nicholas Island. Well, this is an amazing place because this is on an island which we kayak to from the mainland, way over there. And incredibly, this whole island used to be covered in churches, but it was abandoned in 650. So 500 years before William the Conqueror even turned up in the UK, this place had already been abandoned. You can see the ruins of an old church there. Absolutely amazing place. No one lives here, I don't think, apart from a few goats. But just incredible, so many ancient ruins. So there we go, that's all my Turkish footage strung together, all in one place. Hope you enjoyed it. I personally think that it's one of the most beautiful and most dramatic parts of the Mediterranean, as I've said throughout this video. As you can probably tell, actually, can you tell? The more eagle-eyed amongst you might wonder or might know what that is, but others might not. We're no longer in Turkey. This is in fact just the Jurassic coast off the Dorset coast in the UK, and it just shows that you don't have to go too far to see some beautiful and spectacular coastal scenery. If you want to know how to do this little micro adventure, it's about half a day long and it's quite a lot of kayaking. I'm pretty knackered actually. Then I'll make some sort of link or something and put it in the description of the video, or show you on the blog or whatever it happens to be. See you next time. Bye.